Right, the if Khabib didn't slap Artem timeline. Let's look at the butterfly effect of that slap and how it would have affected the course of MMA history. As we know, Conor had left the UFC to fight Floyd, and his lightweight belt was up for grabs. Khabib was in preparations for his 223 fight against Ali Quinter for the lightweight title. He was cutting weight, he was grumpy, he had to leave his room for media obligations that he wasn't in the mood for. And as he went to leave his room to go into the now famous hallway, something strange happened. A touch of shameless casual magic sprinkled over the room, and something came over Khabib. Instead of rushing out to the hallway, he took a moment and had a few bites of his burger and a few sips of his Coke. No big deal. Sure, he was cutting weight, but he was hungry. He's on target, it's all good. Moments later, Khabib was walking through the hallways and he ran into Artem. Khabib was angry at Artem because he'd heard him in an interview in Russian TV saying that Conor was the real champion. Khabib ain't happy about it and he confronts him. Artem explains what he meant in the interview. Khabib, now with the Coke and burger in his system, is in a better mood and he can focus on what Artem is telling him. After a brief, heated discussion, the two come to an agreeable place, show respect to each other and part ways. Khabib then goes on to face Ali Quinter and beats him to become the lightweight champion. It's then time for Conor to return. The fight between Conor and Khabib is set. Both men begin their training camps. The build-up to this fight gets tense, but both men keep it fairly respectful. Tickets sell well and Uncle Dana is happy. Fans are divided on what the outcome will be, but everyone is excited. And on the 6th of August 2018, at UFC 229, the fight takes place. It's a tough battle, both having their moments. It goes all 5 rounds and is an instant classic. At the beginning of the 5th round, both fighters recognise the epicness of the moment and the energy of the crowd, and they meet in the middle at the beginning of the round and shake hands. After the fight, the judges make their decision, and Khabib gets a decision. Conor takes it well and blames inactivity for the loss. Later on come some very complimentary speeches from both sides in the post-fight press conference. To everyone's surprise, in the following months, Conor flies out to Dagestan to train with Khabib. The media's all over this and everyone's invested. They form a close friendship and positive vibes resonate throughout the UFC landscape and around the world. The positivity bleeds out into all sorts of cultures. Everyone's so positive. The workers in a lab in China, I forget the name of it, I think it starts with W. The researchers there are in such high spirits that they remember to follow all the safety protocols correctly, ensuring no viruses escape. It seems weird I even needed to mention that randomly. But moving on, the world carries on as normal. Khabib fights Dustin next, with Conor in his corner. He defeats Dustin comfortably with a rear naked choke. Conor spends some time away from the sport to work on his skills with Khabib and his teammates in Dagestan. In a different area, with Conor's help and influence, Khabib launches a new vodka, Proper Goat, and takes on the vodka industry. Islam Makhachev, an up-and-coming lightweight in Khabib and Conor's team, decides that with both his close brothers at the top of that division, he moves up to welterweight. He fights Neil Magny and secures a win. Tony Ferguson beats Cowboy Cerrone and is now on a 12-fight win streak. Dana feels it's time and makes that fight for a 5th time. Khabib versus Tony Ferguson is booked for UFC 254. With no injuries and no tripping on cables or any other worldwide unprecedented times to get in the way, the fight between Tony and Khabib finally goes down. Fans can't believe it. It's wild and competitive first round. In the second, Tony catches Khabib with a spinning elbow. Eddie Bravo yells out "Illuminati roll" and Tony obliges, taking Khabib down. But Khabib reverses the position and dominates Tony for the rest of the round. The rest of the fight is pretty much Khabib getting Tony to the ground, a lot easier than some had expected, and holding Tony there while he applied his signature ground and pound. Tony throws up the occasional submission threat, but nothing much comes of it. In the last moments of the 5th round, Khabib is on top of Tony. The atmosphere in the arena is somber. Khabib is riding out the time. He briefly looks up at the clock and Tony throws up a triangle attempt and gets it. With only 50 seconds left, the crowd goes wild. Khabib flips around, but then he slows down. The ref watches Khabib closely. He calls it. Tony backwards rolls, gets up. It sinks in. He starts crying. Khabib, also crying, slouches on the floor. The cage fills with people. Conor consoles Khabib. Tony comes over to pay respect to Khabib. Conor, furious, pushes Tony and there's a scuffle in the cage. Once the dust settles from that fight, There's much debate in the community about who should get the next title shot. Khabib because he dominated Tony for most of the fight, or Conor due to this new intense grudge between him and Tony. Money talks and Uncle Dana books Conor versus Tony in Ireland. Conor and Khabib fall out over this and part ways. Tony and Conor fight. The Khabib fight took its toll on Tony, and he doesn't seem the same fighter. Conor quite comfortably pieces Tony up and wins back his title. The Irish crowd go absolutely mental. Ian Gary, who's in the crowd watching, breaks his ankle badly while celebrating. The injury is so severe it comes out later that it completely ends his MMA career. So sad. Tony takes the mic and thanks the fans for all the love, and he retires. Tony gives the fans a 10-minute standing ovation. Later, there's a #1 contender fight between Khabib and an up-and-comer, Charles Oliveira. After a wild fight, Oliveira knocks out Khabib and gets the title shot. Charles and Conor fight in Vegas, and Charles gets the win, submitting Conor with a Boston Crab. After the fight, Conor has a meltdown and retires. Islam, now with wins at welterweight over Sean Brady and Colby Covington, moves down to lightweight to take on Charles to avenge Khabib. Charles and Islam get it on in Abu Dhabi. After an intense start, Islam catches Charles on the feet in the second and follows him to the ground, where he secures an arm triangle choke and wins. Son of a bitch. At the post-fight press conference, Dana announces a new 165 division, and Conor returns to face Justin Gaethje for the belt. Justin wins by knockout. Conor convinces Dana not to invest in Power Slap, but to instead team up with him to buy out Bare Knuckle. The UFC slowly incorporates Bare Knuckle into its events, holding Bare Knuckle events at venues the day before fight nights. Many UFC fighters at the end of their careers are now starting to transition over smoothly to Bare Knuckle. After losing to Volk a third time, Max moves up to 165 to take on Justin. After being written off in the build-up, Max surprises everyone with a dominant performance. It's a fight for the ages. At the end of the 5th round, Max, who has a clear victory, points down to the centre of the cage. Justin obliges and they throw down. With seconds to go, Justin catches Max and knocks him out cold. Justin retains the belt. And there we are. And I've run it through AI, and that is all 100% scientifically accurate. Who would have thought that a Coke and a burger would have made so much difference? Let me know if you like this video and if you've got any other ideas for alternate timelines. And check out this playlist of recent bangers, and I'll see you next time.